blazer on with my sweater today. Oh, okay, we're streaming live. Hello, everyone. For anyone watching, we are getting started shortly. Folks are entering the Zoom. Fun. All right, I think our members are here and we're ready to get started. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the very first meeting of the Election Law Subcommittee of the House Ways and Means Committee. I'm excited to be the new chair and work with this wonderful team of delegates for us to help handle and lead the House in terms of election policy. I wanted to just start by sharing a few housekeeping items for our work together this legislative session. I want to first start by recognizing my Chief of Staff, Kathleen. You all are getting emails from her, so I just wanted you all to see she's right now listed as that WAMELS name, but that's who you're getting emails from. And of course, our wonderful committee staff, Stan Ward, is who will be advising our committee, and Pat O'Leary from the Speaker's office, who helps provide so much wonderful guidance for us. So thank you, everyone, to this team. So in terms of what to expect, first, for the purposes of the Zoom, if you're not a member of the committee, if you're able to turn your video off, just so that we can make sure that on the stream that the members are able to be seen on the stream. So that's something that we'll ask you to do for these meetings. I also want to mention that in terms of the meeting date and meeting times, we're going to meet as needed when we have bills that need to be discussed. I understand that this 10 a.m. time might not work for all members. This might not be the best time. So I think I'm looking at 12 o'clock on Thursdays. So if you can loosely, and for your staff that might be watching, if you can loosely hold that time and speak up now, if that time doesn't work. But if you can loosely hold that, what I'll do is try to let you know by Monday night if we're going to be meeting that week, so that you can have some notice and calendar as needed. Another thing is that I'd like us to really, for these meetings, be ready to go in terms of our amendments and our discussion, and be ready to vote if necessary. So when you receive the notice of the bills that we're going to be discussing, if you have issues with them, if you need an amendment, flag it for me, flag it for Stan, speak to the amendments office, and we'll do what we can to make sure that we have everything ready to go for when our committee meets. Let's see. But make sure you flag them for me so that I can be aware of what's going on. The last thing is that for advocates, we appreciate you. We're glad to have you all on the line and on the Zoom. And for members as well, we won't be rehashing hearings, but we will be calling on you as needed to answer questions. So if there are questions that come up, that's the time when you can go ahead and put your video on and answer a question. But we do have advocates who are on the Zoom line to help provide their expertise as needed. I think that is pretty much it in terms of a couple housekeeping items for us to kind of set the tone and be ready for our subcommittee meetings. Any questions?
I do have a question. Are you going to let us know if you want us to, if we're moving a bill or if we're discussing a bill ahead of time, or it's up to the committee's will?
Sure. Yes, we will be putting that in the email. So on the email that you received for this meeting, it said voting session, and I hope to vote on all of the bills that we have on the agenda for today. But sometimes it'll say discussion or discussion and possible voting. So we will try to make it clear for everyone so that you can come prepared. And just to clarify, if you're a member of the committee, you can have your video on, but if you're not a member of the committee, if you can turn your video off, that would be great. Wonderful. So I think we're ready to get started.
He's talking to you, Mike.
So Alonzo is a former chair, so he's here to be my heavyweight, y'all. Mike, you can turn your video off, but we'll call on you for the bill if we need any input from you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate, for joining us. Awesome. Okay, so let's start with HB 206. We're going to start with Delegate Washington's bill. As you know, this bill is pretty simple. It just changes the hours that early voting will take place. So it'll be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with this bill. This is something that we passed last year. Does anyone have any comments before we take questions on this bill?
I move favorable.
Second.
Right. Thank you. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Let's vote. Stan?
Actually, I can, generally, it's just a show of hands, but however you'd like to do it, Madam Chair, if you'd like me to call names and write down, I can do that.
For this one, I think maybe we can just take hands. Okay, everyone's on video? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone against? Any abstentions? All right, the bill passes out of subcommittee HB 206. Congratulations, Vice Chair Washington, on the very first bill out of the Election Law Subcommittee.
I'm so grateful for everybody's vote of support for this bill. Thank you. I will have you up early at the early voting polls.
I just appreciate the extra hour.
This came with coffee, right?
I know, right?
And Stan and Pat, I should say, as the staff supporting the committee in terms of video, whatever you all are comfortable with, if you want to be on or off. So yeah, thank you guys. Okay, HB 335. This is election law, party and public offices prohibitions from Delegate Boyce. This bill, as you know, it makes sure that people are not able to hold party offices like your central committees, as well as elected public office. There is one amendment on this bill, which you received via email. This amendment just clarifies that if you're running for a party delegate position, so maybe a delegate to
convention,
DNC, right, your RNC, that you can run for that as well if you're in elected office and serve as a delegate to your DNC or RNC. It's just a clarifying amendment there. Is there any discussion on this bill before we entertain motions?
Yes.
Delegate Long.
Yeah, just want to clarify on this bill. So you're saying if someone wanted to run for a state delegate and run for the central committee, they'd be prohibited?
Yes.
Okay, the way we pick our primary, we pick our, yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Delegate Washington?
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I was going to ask, why can't I be a senator and a delegate? Does this bill prevent me from doing that?
For being a state
senator
and
a delegate?
Yeah, no, okay. It does not prevent that specifically, but we might have other laws that do.
I just want to make sure you're saying that you can't run for central committee and a state office together.
Right. Cannot. It
Okay.
would prohibit it.
Okay.
Okay.
Just my last question, Madam Chair. Did this bill move last year or no? I can't remember.
Yes, we did
okay.
pass this bill out last year, everyone. I may not have mentioned that.
Yeah, cool.
All right. On the amendment, do we have a motion?
You can't see my hand.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Delegate Lasanti.
I keep trying to change the color, but I can't.
It blends in with your background a little bit, actually.
I need paint. I need to paint my office. I'm sorry, Madam Chair, may I, just a quick clarification?
Sure.
May I have a question?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just a quick clarification. And I think it follows up on Delegate Long's question. This is strictly for state office, not local office. I don't see that specifically in the bill.
This applies to local offices too. It says any.
Oh, it does
public
apply
office.
to local offices.
Does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions before we entertain a motion?
I move the amendment.
Second.
All right, the amendment has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favorable of the amendment to the bill that clarifies that you can run for your party delegate to a convention position, as well as serve in public office and serve in those two capacities only. All those in favor of that amendment, raise your hand. All right. All those opposed? All right, the amendment carries.
I
On the
move the
bill,
bill as amended.
Second.
the bill as amended has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of HB 335 as amended, please raise your hand. All right, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that right? Yes, 5. All those opposed? All right, Delegate Long. No one else to abstain. All right, the bill as amended passes with, yes, with amendment, as I already said, HB 335. Perfect. Second bill. All right, we're moving. The next bill I'd like to discuss is HB 398. This bill deals with time off for employee voting. This is Delegate Polakovich-Carr's bill. It requires an employer to allow up to 2 hours off in terms of the employee being able to vote, whether it's during early voting or on election day. There is an amendment to this bill that just clarifies, basically, let me look at the amendment. Let me make sure I know what it says. Okay, so basically the bill as it passed the House last year, it wasn't specific about if you can choose to vote on any day or during early voting. So the amendment is clarifying that it can be during early voting or it can be on election day. So that's why we have this amendment from Delegate Polakovich-Carr. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns for the group before we entertain a motion?
Yes.
Yes, Delegate Long.
Yeah, I'm trying to refresh my memory. Is this, they have to allow them off 2 hours with pay?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion? Oh, I'm still not seeing you. Sorry, Delia Lizanti, go ahead.
That's okay. If I can figure out how to change the color, I will. So that this sticks out a little bit more. Just a quick question maybe for staff. I'm not sure. The current law, there is not, the current law does not require any time off, does it?
It does on election day. So if you don't have at least 2 hours time off on election day, then they have to give you 2 hours paid leave. This would just make that applicable to early voting if the voter prefers.
On election day. Okay, yeah, I knew election day. So it's just extending it to any of the other during early voting then.
Right.
Yes, and then it also applies to people who may not be registered already, so they can go and do same-day registration. Those are the two big changes.
So it's basically, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really not expending it. It's recognizing when election day is. It's election day is during any of these times which you choose to exercise your right.
Exactly.
So it's really not. It's not extending benefits. It's applying benefits.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion on the amendment.
Move
So moved.
favorable.
A second?
Second.
Wonderful. It's been moved and properly seconded, the amendment to HB 398. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All right, I count 1, 2, 3, 4. It's surprisingly hard to count on Zoom, by the way. 5. Count 5.
Really big.
Right. All those opposed?
How's that? You see my hand?
I see your hand there. Thank you. All right, no abstentions. Okay, the amendment carries. A motion on the bill as amended.
So moved, Madam
Favorable.
Chair.
All right, a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, any discussion? Okay, we'll.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
Maybe Stan can clarify this. If can an employer decide when the person gets the 2 hours? If they say, well, no, you can't do it today, you can do it on election day. Because of this, right? Because we're expanding it to early voting, right? Is there a discretion with the employer in order to do that? And how do we fix that if that is the case?
So that's actually exactly the issue that the amendment fixes.
Okay.
So it says that it's the employee's choice as to which day they get
Got
to
it.
vote. And then the
Fair
employer
enough.
has to give them the 2
Okay,
hours on the
thank
day
you.
they choose.
Sorry
And
about that. Thank you.
And it does have the shall language, so that's good.
Can I ask
Delia Feldman?
just one other clarifying question? This requirement to give 2 hours off only applies if the work schedule does not allow at least 2 hours during voting, correct?
Yes.
I think that's just an important point for everyone to understand. This only counts if you're working the whole range of options without 2 hours on one end or the other. So.
Right.
Correct.
I have a question.
Good point.
All right,
I have a question.
Delia Long.
Okay, question is if the employer decides to give the gentleman or lady time off after, I mean, allows them to come in late, do they still have to be paid?
If they don't have, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Stan.
Go ahead, Stan, thanks.
Yeah, if they don't have 2 hours paid time off during the time the polls are open, then they have to pay them up to 2 hours to be off to go vote. So, yeah.
One last question. So it would be up to the employee to designate when that would be, not the employer?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, did I already move the bill as amended? Okay, already did that. All right, so that was the discussion. All those in favor of HB 398 as amended, raise your hand. All right, we have 4, 5 in favor. Any opposed? 1, thank you, Delia Long. No abstentions. The bill as amended carries. HB 398. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to HB 156. This is the bill from Delegate Lukey and Delegate Griffith that helps to expand voting opportunities for students on campus, as well as for our military service members. There is one drafted amendment on this bill that you all have received in your email. This amendment is from Delegate Rose. What this amendment does is it says that in terms of the time off that a student would be allowed to vote, and this is the time that they would be able to take off of school or work if they have a job on campus, it would be between 7 a.m. on 8 p.m. on election day for the purpose of voting. and it says not less than what is necessary for the student to cast a vote. So I think that this is maybe expanding and making it a longer amount of time, but I'm going to ask Stan, since he drafted it, to talk a little bit about this amendment and its impact on the bill.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's instead of just being up to 2 hours, it would be however much the student needed to vote. So it would be pretty much open-ended in terms of the amount of time they were entitled to from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on election day.
In terms of early voting, is it 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and early voting too, or this is just election day?
This is just election day.
Okay. Vice Chair Washington.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to ask so this amendment will extend it to if they need the full day. I mean, we all know they don't need the full day, but if they need the full day, they can use the full day. Is that possible?
Yes. Yep.
Got it. And it will be an excused absence for the student at the school?
Yes.
Got it. Cool. And only on election day, though, not early voting?
Yes.
Got it. Cool.
Correct.
And this is the amendment, though, right?
This is the amendment to the bill.
Got it.
I will say that because we just moved out a bill that said 2 hours, for consistency purposes, I do wonder about adding the full day for students just to be consistent. But I think this is something for us to discuss and parse out and figure out. Delegate Washington?
Yeah, I think my comment to that would be that, we know how hard it is to get young people out to vote. We want to encourage them to get out to vote. And if they need the full day to get out to vote, they can do it. They should be able to do it. High schoolers who turn 18 have the entire day to vote, or if they're 17 turning 18 in the primary, then they have the ability to vote the full day on election day. I learned something, Stan.
Learned a lot.
and so I just I support this amendment because it does open it up for them to use the full day if necessary, and then hopefully be able to do their research that day of if they need it. So I support the full day, this is just on election day, unlike the other bill is 2 hours during early voting and any other time we have the option to vote.
Mm-hmm. Delegate Jones?
Thank you. Just clarification, I apologize. Stan, could this be used for a high, Delegate Washington just mentioned a high schooler, potentially like a senior. It's just college though?
Yes.
And is this born from because they need to drive home potentially to their home polling location, which Frostburg to Montgomery County, you eat your favorite restaurant, then you go back to Frostburg. Is that what we're thinking? Thank you.
Delegate Washington. I
know I'm talking a lot, but I mean, if they go to College Park and they live in Landover and they just need to go down the street to vote, they can just go down the street to vote, right, on election day. So it just gives everybody the option to be able to, spend the full day in order to get there and do it. So, and they might want to take their whole family to vote, like I did. So,
All right. Jared from SBE has a question or comment.
I just wanted to make a point to Delegate Jones's about high school students. High school students have the day off because we use those. So that doesn't apply to them. College students do not have the officially day off. So that's why there's a distinction between college and high school students.
All right, but what does the bill have? I'm just looking at the language in terms of early voting. Are these students able to take time off for early voting? I think I only see election day.
Yeah, bill doesn't address early voting.
Well, having a full day on election day might be a decent compromise, but if the student can't go on that day for some reason. Delegate Lasanti.
Madam Chair, I mean, do we want to take the time to consider that that issue to make it consistent with the bill that we previously passed to address early voting, or what is that too far off the mark for this bill.
We certainly could. I think it could be, we could potentially think about not just on election day, but for whichever day they choose, being able to take that full day.
We just passed a bill for workers, for employees that said that they can choose during this election period when they can vote. So, you know, it seems like a reasonable accommodation for students as well.
Other thoughts? Oh, Delegate Feldmark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we still have one of the sponsors on the line with us? Or can we ask if this was considered in the drafting? I don't know if that's.
We have Eric Lutke's Chief of Staff, Brad, and we also have Delegate Griffith, if either of you would like to chime in.
I'm just curious if it was considered and rejected, or if there was a thought process about limiting it to just election day, or if it just wasn't really discussed.
I can chime in. Thank you for the question, Delegate. It was just kind of the reality of working with USM and figuring out what was feasible on their end. Mandatory full day off was going to be difficult, so 2 hours was somewhat of a compromise.
Okay.
It also brings
But only on election day, is that what you're saying? Or the question was for the early voting?
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, just election day.
So you didn't discuss early voting time?
That's correct. Yeah, that didn't come up.
Okay.
All right, so I think that we probably need a little bit more discussion and consideration on this bill. I'm actually going to hold this one, but before we do that, Mary Ann had a potential amendment as well, and I wanted her to just explain it so that we can think about that for the next meeting.
Sure, thank you very much. And as soon as the drafter gets it to us, we'll have it. But basically, this just, I'm trying to pull up the bill really quickly. As a new part of the bill from what we heard last year, there was a new addition that dealt with the common access card for the Department of Defense. And in the way this bill is drafted, it says that the card may be used to apply to register to vote and apply for the absentee ballot. I want to just put a some clarifying language in there that says that this is used for identity, because they're actually not applying to vote. They're actually and according to Jared, they are using this as a signature card to verify someone's identity, not their qualifications to vote or their residency. So I just want to clarify that so that there's so that the bill is clear.
Any questions?
I think it's going to be 1 or 2 words. I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward amendment.
Any questions, thoughts, or concerns about that potential amendment?
There's a second amendment?
Yes. Delegate Lasanti, can you just say it one more time? What you
Rewind.
I'm sorry, before she does that, are we moving the first amendment, the first one?
We're holding it.
Okay.
And for purposes of the next discussion on this bill, I wanted Delegate Lasanti to just share what she was thinking in terms of her amendment so we can chew on that.
Yeah, it was just clarifying that the common access card, the way the bill is drafted, it says that is basically how you apply. You have to apply, you use that as a verification of identity. According to the federal statute. And I just want to clarify that, put a clarifying sentence in there, that's all.
All right, so that's a clarification around how the card will be used. I think that Delegate Lasanti has put in that amendment to be
Yes.
formally drafted. So we'll have that for the next conversation. We're going to go ahead and hold this bill for the next meeting. And finally, we are moving on to House Bill 369. What this bill does is requires that contracts with providers of election systems, requires them to report on any manufacturing components of the election system that occurs outside the United States, and any material change to a component in any stage of the manufacturing that occurs outside the United States at any time during the contract. This is a bill that we passed through the House last year. And are there any, there are no amendments on it. Are there any questions or thoughts for discussion before we entertain a motion?
Favorable.
All right, I'm just gonna hold one moment. Delegate Lasanti, we'll do discussion. Do you wanna ask your question then?
Yeah, I just want to be clear as to what is considered a major component. I think I probably asked this last time, but I don't know a lot about how voting about how it's constructed. So I'm just curious as to what the target is here.
So the bill the component is defined as any hardware or software component. So it's very broad. Basically anything that is manufactured abroad would have to be disclosed under this.
It's disclosed to the Board of Elections.
Correct. And then the board has to redisclose that information to a list of state officials that includes
Right.
the president and the speaker.
Right.
And the Department of Information Technology, and then that triggers the authority of the state administrator if she determines that the foreign manufacturer in fact would compromise the integrity of the election or has would create the appearance of compromising the integrity of the election, then she could terminate that contract in whole or in part. And if she exercised that authority, then she would also notify the list of state officials that she had done so.
Other questions?
And it gives them no authority to do anything. It's for our knowledge of where the components are coming from.
It does give the state administrator the authority to terminate the contract in whole or in part. If she finds that it either would compromise the integrity of the election or would give the appearance of compromising the integrity of the election. So it does empower the state administrator to get out of a contract if the foreign manufacturer of the election system would create a problem.
And also, Delegate, I would just chime in really quick, and someone else here, if they have more info, can clarify. But you know, going back to the I think it was the 2016 election where the FBI informed the state that there was one of the vendors of our backend of the state's backend software was actually bought and sold by a Russian corporation, and so the state was held powerless in that position to terminate the contract unilaterally. So these are safeguards subsequently that are being tried to put in place to address that in the future.
Delegate Rosenberg, you're on mute.
I did one thing so you could see me, but then you got to hear me. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yes, this is language that is from HR 1, the federal bill that passed the House in the prior term, has been reintroduced and is now, I believe, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So it's part of that legislation. That's the model for this legislation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Put my hand down.
All right, is there a motion on this bill?
So moved.
Favorable?
Move the bill favorable, Madam Chair, for clear.
Thank you, Delegate Lasanti. A second from
Second.
Delegate Jones.
Oh.
All right, and Delegate Feldmark. The bill has been moved and properly seconded. All those in, well, any additional discussion? Delegate Washington.
You know, I've been paying attention to the HR1 bill in the federal government, and I just want to make sure that this doesn't prevent. You know, I might just abstain for this bill just for the purpose of me taking a longer look at the bill later, and I haven't, and I'll probably vote for it in the full committee.
All right. All those, is there any additional discussion?
I'm sorry, I just got out of Zoom court. So, I Zoom around all day
Was
long.
that Simple Country Zoom court?
Yeah, exactly. It's not so simple.
Dial up.
Yeah. I mean, what could somebody just tell me where we are right now? I apologize.
No problem. Welcome, Delegate Shoemaker. We're glad you're able to join us. We are on HB 369, the last bill that we're going to discuss today. This is the one dealing with the foreign manufacturers of election systems. We passed it out last year, and the bill has been moved and seconded, and we're just having discussion now.
Okay.
Any additional discussion?
Madam Chair, I read the bill. And it looks fine. I think I'm gonna vote for it.
All right. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Washington. We appreciate you. All right. So we have moved and seconded. We've had discussion. Is there any final discussion before we vote on this bill? All right. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay. I believe that's unanimous. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? No one to abstain. All right. With a vote of this committee, HB 369 moves out of election law. Thank you so much for a wonderful first meeting of our subcommittee. We got through a lot of work. Awesome. So we know that on the agenda for the next meeting, we'll definitely have HB 156. We're looking at next Thursday at 12 p.m. As a potential meeting, so you can hold the time, and we'll follow up to confirm that with you. Are there any questions, comments, or anything before we adjourn? All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We're adjourned.
Bye.
Thank you.